The streets are talking. You are now listening to The Box Out, tri-state area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it.
From NJ to BK and the world, this is The Box Out here on the One Podcast Network YouTube channel and on the Spotify, the One Podcast Network as well. My name is Kahlil Thomas. Join me in just a few minutes will be Jason Cordner from Brooklyn, New York. The third attempt at recording this show live. Last Thursday, we were scheduled to have the show, and 20 minutes before we went on live, a thunderstorm rolled through New Jersey and knocked out my electricity for about an hour and a half. So that didn't happen. And then I got sick over the weekend. If you hear my voice, it's a little sketchy. So I'm here, but I got sick. So I said, we're going to do this anyway, do the show. We have a lot to talk about tonight, a lot to get into, a lot to dig into. And I wanted to start with WNBA stuff because I think, we weren't on last week, and I could not sing the praises of the WNBA enough for their All-Star weekend in Vegas 2 weeks ago. ESPN did not do them any favors for this skills competition on Friday of that weekend. They put the skills competition on like at 4:00 in the afternoon, which sorry, I forgot it was on because, I have kids, I got lives, I got things going on. So you forget it's on. Luckily, they showed the replay later, so I was able to kind of see what I was reading on social media and the internet and stuff like that. But the game itself on Saturday night, which was on ABC prime time, and I said some shit a few weeks ago that, they can get 3 million people. Now, obviously, I was talking a lot of shit. That was stupid of me to say that the WNBA can get 3 million people to watch an All-Star game. Not the NBA, not WNBA finals, not a major playoff game, not a rivalry game, not Aces Liberty. I said they can get 3 million people for an All-Star game that we all know All-Star games are bullshit in every single league, no matter what. We got that point. However, according to ratings of the Saturday night All-Star game, Saturday night's WNBA All-Star game, the first WNBA game to ever air in prime time on broadcast television, averaged 850,000 viewers on ABC, marking the league's largest All-Star Game audience since 2007. That was 950, and the fourth largest on record behind 2007, 2005, which got 1.25 million viewers, and 2003, which got 1.44 million viewers. So if you look at it in the aggregate, they're in that top 4 spot. They didn't hit 1.4 like the high was. They hit 850,000 on a Saturday night. And I want to get down to the All-Star Skills Competition. The live showing of the All-Star Skills Competition on Friday afternoon got 288,000 people on ESPN. So it's a Friday afternoon, and they got 288,000 folks. I'm not going to say, that's great, but it's Friday afternoon, and they got 288. So I think that was a huge accomplishment for them to get what they got. And I just think they showed ESPN, ABC, CBS Sports Network, maybe big CBS. They could pull a number if you give them time, give them some promotion. They can get some viewers. I think if you promote the WNBA, and you're not going to promote them like you promote the NBA. That's not going to happen. I'm not reckless enough to say they should market the WNBA like the NBA. That's not a thing. That's not going to happen. But if you do what you need to do to help them out, you can get something from the WNBA in a primetime slot, especially on a Saturday night. As I welcome in Jason Cordner from Brooklyn, New York. Jay, what's happening, bro?
Not much, man. What's going on?
Not much, man. Listen, I was talking about the WNBA All-Star ratings and how, they got 850,000 people on a Saturday night. They got 288,000 on a Friday afternoon, which sucks for them for the skills. I said 3 million, and I was stupid when I said that last week. As soon as I said it, that day I said it, I saw your face and Bruce in the chat quick to point it out like you're crazy. As soon as I said it, I was like, I'm stupid. But I defended.
Could have done a mill. I thought they could have done a mill if they had positioned everything better.
But 850 is not a bad number for them.
That's not a bad number. It's not a bad number.
So I was saying I want to give him props because we tried to do a show last Thursday, and I texted you like 15 minutes out. Like, my electricity just shut off because we had a major thunderstorm. I got sick. So I'm like, this is take 3. So thanks for being available. Thank you so much for being on.
Of course. Hey,
thunderstorms and sickness. Thunderstorms and sickness in my house. That's what's going on right now. That's what's happening in New Jersey. That's my life right now. In regards to regular WNBA, listen, you saw the Liberty the other day. I think the question with I gotta put what Bruce set up here. Hold on. It's a show. Finally, the Liberty won something All-Star weekend. So shout out to Sabrina Ionescu for winning the 3-point shootout. A record breaking.
Was that the best 3-point shootout, men or women?
Yep. In the NBA and WNBA history, that was the best performance. And you got to go back, like that's like Larry Bird, that's Jeff Hornacek, that's like that's Steph Curry. That spans time. And Sabrina Ionescu killed it. My question to you, because you covered the Liberty, you were there on Monday. What is wrong with them? Because I know they lost the other night in the back-to-back to Minnesota, which we were texting. I'm like, they look tired. They look exhausted. It was a back-to-back. I don't know how many times have been back-to-backs in WNBA history. This might have been the first one. They looked exhausted. But you saw on Monday, it seemed like they jump out to these big leads or they fall down early and either have to kind of come back late or give the lead up and lose late. Like what do you see for them like live when you see them at Barclays?
It's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of relying on the 3-ball, a lot of ISO. I think the problem, and I want to say when I went to the Lynx game, I was like, I don't think they're going to beat the Aces. I don't think they can beat the Aces in the series. And I just think that's something where like Sabrina, she's coming around with the scoring, but as she's coming around the scoring, her assists are going down. And I think that's the key for them. I think she's got to find a way to get everybody involved, and it just can't be a 2-man game with her and Stewart for them to be successful long term. I think that's the problem with the team.
Yeah, and Bruce said in the chat just now, Sabrina's not a shooting guard. She's a shooting guard. Well, Sabrina's a point, but she's playing off ball because of Vandersloot.
Right.
So she's able to generate points because she kind of has to based on where she is and based on her positioning. But she has to play the 2 because Vandersloot kind of takes over that 1 spot. And if Vandersloot sits down, that's when she becomes the point. But then that's when Brianna Stewart sits down and Jacqueline Jones sits down and when they need to score when Sabrina's on the court. So I think picking up Vandersloot was a great move in reality. But I think it kind of messes up the dynamic that Sabrina would have had as a point guard created. Like you said, her assist goes down when she has to score points. When she has to drop 35 points, she's only going to get 6 or 7 assists. When she can get 20 assists in the game if she really needs to. We've seen her do it in the league and in college at Oregon. So it just seems like I almost want to give them a pass for the other night because it was a back-to-back.
I feel like you have to.
Yeah, it was just a weird situation. They looked hot. By the second quarter, they looked exhausted. So you could, I get it. Yeah, they're tired. But going forward, and you said it, I think the Aces might be the runaway champs right now. I don't think there's anyone that can legitimately stop the Las Vegas Aces. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone can stop them. And I think their dominance and just their front line is going to present massive challenges, not just for the Liberty, but for the whole league. Like, I don't think anyone can hang with them, like, in a series, period. Maybe, I would have said maybe Connecticut, but I don't even think Connecticut, with their size, would be able to hang with them.
Well, it's funny because Vegas played Dallas. Dallas beat them. Dallas is one of the 2 losses that Vegas has right now. Dallas plays them close. And Dallas, you talk about the front line, Dallas's front court is just big.
Yeah.
So you need a front court that matches size-wise up perfectly with Vegas, and Dallas has that. Sabali was killing him inside, not just in the game last week, but the game just a couple weeks ago when he lost to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at the teams in the league, Dallas might be the only team. You said Connecticut, possibly, if they had Jonquel Jones still.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Dallas might be the only team in WNBA that can actually give the Aces some work and make them work, because I feel like, Kelsey Plum's able to get good shots and Chelsea Gray's able to get good shots because of that inside. They have a lot of inside outside. If you shut that inside down and put the focus on Kelsey Plum or Gray, you win. You can win that game because you're shutting out that inside, which they dominate so much. So I think Dallas might be the only team in the whole league that could really give them work. And Liberty, and it hurt. Stephanie Dawson's still out. I don't know what her deal is. I think it was an ankle injury, and she's still out. Looking good on the sideline.
Looking really good on the sideline.
Yeah. But without her, I feel like they struggle inside too, because they have Jonquel Jones. And besides her, they have the other Sabali sister who plays like 5 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And that's really it. They don't have a lot of size. But Nigel Laney could play a forward spot, but she's really a bigger guard. So until they get Dawson back, I think they're going to be shorthanded front court, and that's going to be the problem with them against Las Vegas.
Yeah. Unless they shoot lights out, which I doubt it.
Which lead the league in threes. Inescu's killing it. Like I told you before, I'm like, I couldn't count them out when you counted them out, because I'm like, Sabrina are going on court, hit 2 threes, but okay, they're back in it. So it's like, you can't, because when they're shooting, when the Liberty's on, they're on.
Right.
And it's insane when they're on. They're on. It's Bruce is talking a lot of shit about Courtney Vandersloot. I get it. She's a little washed up now. I understand. But if Vandersloot has a good game, Breanna Stewart's going to get her points. Sabrina's hitting shots. Jonquel Jones has been hitting threes the last couple of games. Laney's able to hit the three. Marie Johannes hit 5 of 5 yesterday for a while. Mm-hmm. I feel like if they're shooting well, they're unbeatable, but you have to depend on shooting. And WNBA or NBA, if you're depending on 3-point shooting, you're not going to win any games.
Not going to win.
So that's going to be a problem for them. But I don't think the Aces are going to be stopped. I think besides Dallas, that's it. 23-2 right now. 7 wins in a row. The Liberty 19-6. Listen, it's the Aces' title to win at this point. It's theirs to win, and God bless whoever can take them down.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see if the Liberties could stop them and win the Commissioner's Cup first.
Okay, so you cover them. So you can look at this comment, and you can comment on where Bruce put.
Oh, no.
Like, I disagree with that statement completely.
I disagree. However, there's times where it definitely look like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely times.
Yeah. It just, I mean, I also feel like she's coming from a team in Connecticut that she was the number 1 option.
Right.
And now she's the 3rd option? Third, fourth?
Yeah.
Right? It depends on the night. It could be Benija Laney, could be 3rd. She could be 4th.
Exactly.
The other day, she was 2, because I feel like Breanna Stewart had a bad game. Jonquel Jones kind of stepped up. It was just her and Sabrina for a while. So I think she's just trying to find her footing in what she's doing, because she's a former league MVP, and now she's relegated to like an afterthought. She gets a double-double, 13-13, and we're like, oh, great, congratulations. But she was getting like 28-16 last year, with ease. So
it's a tough spot to be in.
Listen, you want to put together a super team. Chris Bosh took a back seat. It happens. You got to do that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, switches to the NBA. Not a lot to talk about. However, 2 things happened. I wanted to do the show on Thursday. Goddamn thunder and lightning. Killed by electricity. James Harden, Dame Lillard, there's been no movement on either one of those fronts. However, Daryl Morey did an interview saying that the Sixers are willing to wait James Harden out and wait a trade out, which they did last year with Ben Simmons. They waited and waited and waited and waited, and they pulled the trigger. So this is what he said to the Fanatic, which is radio station in Philly. If we don't get either a very good player or something we can turn into a very good player, then we're just not going to do it. If James would have turned his mind around, we would all be thrilled. You heard Joel Embiid's comments about that. But at this moment, he prefers to be traded, and we are attempting to honor that. So, actually, we need to make sure that Joel Embiid, who is one of the best players on earth, has a top running mate. We know we need more talent, whether that's James returning or what we turn James into. Daryl does this. Daryl's just not going to give James Harden, no matter what shape he's in, no matter what he is now as a basketball player, he's still James Harden. Daryl Morey's into this for a long haul. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think maybe Harden realizes that, yeah, I'm not going to go anywhere because the price is going to be way too high, and I'm going to be stuck here?
I think he might be stuck there, and I think it's one of those things where you jeopardize losing the team by prolonging this, because we don't know. We all know Harden's reputation of coming in and out of shape, and disingenuous, not really going to be engaging with the team. And I think if Max, this is the advantage of having Maxey. I think Maxey really is the second best player on the team. So if his development takes a leap come this season, then Harden could be an expendable. But I think he's going to be that guy whispering in everyone's ear, like, hey, I really want to get out of here. It's not me, it's management. I found suitors for me, but management doesn't want to deal me because it's not in the best interest of the team. So I think that could be problematic down the stretch.
Yeah, and Harden has a habit of becoming a crybaby, a little bit of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out there. He doesn't get his way. So that's the risk you run in this. You saw what happened in Houston. He didn't want to get traded. Houston said, we're not going to trade you. He comes to camp overweight, not conditioned, and pretty much just didn't give a shit. The risk you run with James Harden is he's one of those guys that be like, nah, I'm not feeling it. And just say, I'm not going to play hard today, or not play at all, and say I tweaked my hamstring or whatever the case. So I think Philly has to be careful. I think Ben Simmons didn't want to be bothered and just stayed away. And they kind of lucked out.
That was different. He wasn't. Everybody wanted him to be away. Team,
exactly.
Everybody.
He wasn't an issue. He wasn't at the facility talking shit or, just running around. He ran around for a minute with a phone in his pocket. Beside the point. Right. Once he did those couple of days with the team, he's like, "Nah, I'm out. I'm done," and went home. Harden will literally go to your facility, not practice, say some crazy shit in the media, then get on the court and make your team lose. So I feel like Morey knows that. He was part of that before. So I feel like if I was Philly, I would maybe either lower the asking price or just say, listen, we're not trading you. Mm-hmm. We don't have to play you. We can sit you out and go, conduct detrimental and try to keep your money because you have a history of this. So if there was any type of litigation, whatever, they would probably win because Harden has a history of being a douchebag. So I think you have two options: either lower the asking price or tell James, we're not trading you. You're stuck here. Get over it.
Get over it. Play ball. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. And the thing is, with his hard track record, he's a certified rental player now. Because this is the third or fourth team in a row, a year in a row at that he wants out. He didn't last long in Brooklyn. He didn't last long. He's not look like he's not going to last long in Philly. And it's not good. It's not good. It's not a good track record for him. So I think maybe they would have to ask to lower that price.
And it's amazing too if you go back to Houston. He cost himself money on that issue. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn, he cost himself more money because that was all Kyrie. I think Kyrie is what caused him to kind of get disenchanted with Brooklyn. I think him and Katie were fine. I think the way the team was set up was fine. I think Kyrie not playing, not being vaccinated, that whole thing, and Kyrie just feeling like he doesn't care. And Harden was there to win a championship. I think that's what turned him off. I feel like his value just dropped $30-40 million. I think this is what you have now. You have a player whose value is garbage. You don't really know what he has left because you kind of this ain't the Harden from 5-6 years ago that can light a team up. What is he now? What can he do well besides just hold the ball for 15 seconds of a shot clock? I think you don't really know that question. That's why no one's really. I don't think there's any real suitors for James Harden. If you really want to get technical, you look around the league. What team you think would really not even use? What team really needs James Harden right now? I'll wait.
Not much.
Yeah, what team is like, damn, if we got James Harden, we're contenders. There's not one team in the league who's like, yeah, he's the missing piece. No, he's just
maybe. No, you got Middleton in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Boston don't need him.
Mm-hmm.
Miami don't need him.
Mm-mm.
Dallas don't need him.
Mm-mm.
Lakers don't need him. Golden State. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's not one team in NBA.
This is why they kept pushing that Houston narrative.
Yeah, listen, and they're like, oh, Houston really wants Houston. Udoka want no part of James Harden on that team. Udoka's like, I got a bunch of young dudes who I can mold, who I can turn into what I want them. They're not Tatum or Brown or the guys who are already kind of in the league. Forget that. Xavier chiming in, what's going on, X? The Knicks could use him.
I haven't seen. I don't know why they even made. I have so much issues with ESPN lately. This is one of them. Did you see that little video they posted? Like, maybe the Knicks should be interested. Why are we using the Knicks just to get clout? Like, ESPN, I thought you're better. I thought ESPN was better than that.
See, that's your first problem, thinking they're better than that. That's your issue.
You're right. When I saw that YouTube clip, I was like, you gotta be shitting me. Ain't nobody in New York market said they wanted Harden. Nobody.
No. Not even the Knicks themselves. Like, no. Did Leon Rose probably reach out? Probably.
I don't think so.
You don't think so either?
Because Harden is everything that the Knicks are trying not to be anymore. Lazy, unathletic. Yeah, they're not reaching out there. I think they reached out about Levine.
Then why we still got Julius Randle? Why we still got Julius Randle then?
Because Julius is still a walking double-double. Harden is a liability walking double-double. He'll give up, a lot.
Celtics fan Benjamin Warner, Ben, what's going on? Glad the Celtics don't need him. They definitely don't need James Harden in that team right now, especially with the money. We're getting to that a little bit too about Jaylen Brown's new contract, because that happened as well. And I'm curious for your take on that
contract.
Yeah, that was rough. The other thing, the Dame Lillard aspect of it too, the NBA sent a memo to all 30 teams concerning Dame Lillard, saying that the league spoke to Lillard and his agents and reiterated that they should not be commenting on any potential trades and saying that he's not going to play for this team and that team and blah, blah, blah. And if they do, there would be penalties. I was thinking about this as I was washing dishes tonight. I think the NBA and Adam Silver's been really good with the whole player empowerment thing. And he's wanted this. He's like, listen, you guys deserve it. You guys should, get what you get, right? We're making money. You should make money too. I think we're at the point where Silver and the rest of the league, not so much the owners, I think it's more the league, are like, we have to kind of tamp this down a little bit because it's getting to the point where there's too much player empowerment. And I feel like we're like, we get it. We want you to get your money. Mm-hmm. We're not going to stop you from getting your money. And me personally, I'm not a pro management guy. I'm a union dude. But at some point, there has to be there's got some rebalancing of it. Mm-hmm. Where you have Dame Lillard reportedly, because he didn't come out and say it, reportedly saying, I don't want to play for any other team but Miami, and I'm going to be an asshole if I go to any other team. Can't do that.
Yeah, he can't do that. That's not really his MO. He's not really like that either.
Yeah, so do I think he said it? Probably in passing. Or his agent might have put it out there just to kind of push the narrative and push Portland towards making the trade to Miami. Mm-hmm. But I think this is the league saying, listen, y'all need to calm the fuck down. Get back to business and go, this is what you go where you go. Wherever you're traded, you're going to go there and you're going to play your ass off because you're part of the league. We're protecting the shield.
Now, do you think Portland went to the league and be like, hey, listen, we need help here. We need backup here. We don't want to trade our guy to this one franchise and get pennies on the dollar when we know we can get a better package somewhere else?
Probably. I think Portland might have said something to the commissioner. I mean, not the commissioner, but his underlings, and said, listen, this is getting kind of crazy. Miami's offering this. They're expecting to say yes because that's the only game in town. It's the only team Dame wants to go to. So they wait for us to make the move, and this shit needs to stop. I think at some point we're gonna get to that era where, someone's gonna hold out for a whole year. Look at Le'Veon Bell in NFL. Someone's gonna hold out, and then I want to see what happens when someone holds out not for 16 weeks for 82 games, and how that affects their money at that point. But I think this is the league protecting themselves and going like, we get it, get that money, get that bag, but don't be an asshole while getting that bag.
Yeah.
So that's still going on. I don't think that's going to be solved. Do you think this is going to be done before the year's over? Or before off season's done?
I think so. Everybody come to the senses, and I think Miami will eventually get another team involved. I think he goes Miami.
I mean, I think for this deal, with the amount of money he's making, there has to be a third team, because I think the money doesn't really match up.
It might be the Nets.
I mean, we went over the Nets a few weeks ago and how they have picks and expiring. Like, they have a lot to give up to get somebody. But
I can see Tyler Hero in the Nets
to replace Joe Harris.
Yeah,
the one white guy. They need the white guy.
He'll come to the Nets and it'll be like Eminem and 8 Mile. That's the vibe I'm getting. I feel like he's gonna come to Brooklyn. He's gonna swag up with Bridges and Cam, and they're gonna be it's gonna be 8 Mile. It's gonna be beautiful.
Just take over Flatbush Avenue. Just take it all over. Let's be all them. All of them in Brooklyn. So a couple weeks ago we talked about this show. I said I had a thought about the most underrated NBA players in history. I have my list here. I have 6. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Good question for you. Are any of those 6 players Hall of Famers? Because I got a couple that's Hall of Famers.
I have a couple too.
Okay.
Because I feel like the Hall of Famer thing is great, but I think when we talk about basketball now, these 6 guys I feel like are either not talked about enough, or guys that I feel like, because we've kind of come through this LeBron era, like from the Jordan era after that ended, so now, if like anyone in that Jordan era and before, it's kind of forgotten about, besides like Jordan, Pippen, those guys.
Agreed.
So
I felt that way, especially when I don't know if I told you, I was watching that, going down the YouTube wormhole. I was watching the draft of the 96 draft or 97 draft of Kobe, Iverson, that draft class. And I was like, wow, that might have been the last really stacked draft class.
Well, I'm still mad about that draft because Kobe Bryant should have been a New Jersey Net.
Yeah, I remember the problem with that.
He played that shit perfectly because Calipari, scumbag, wanted him in New Jersey. And he said, I'm not playing in New Jersey. If you pick me, I'm going to play in Italy. And that scared him off. So they drafted Kerry Kittles. And I'm like, what the hell? Because if Kobe Bryant was drafted that night, you would not have a team in Brooklyn, J.C. Cordner.
It would have been very hard pressed to move a perennial, it would have been hard pressed to move them from. They would have been in Newark. And
they would have been in Newark.
Would have looked a little different because it would have been built for a multi-purpose arena, even though it kind of is. But the Nets would have had some input there.
Yeah, I was at Newark for what was that Newark for? Some 3-on-3 hockey thing I was covering, and it's just like this. They have Seton Hall basketball, which is pretty good. And they draw a decent number for college basketball, but that's where the Nets should have been playing. That should have been that's Nets area right there. I feel like they could have drew, because if you think about it, we're totally going off a tangent, but nobody went to the Meadowlands not because the teams always sucked. Like the Jason Kidd era, even to go back to when I was growing up with Kenny Anderson and Drazen Petrovic and Derek Coleman, you always had decent teams, but nobody wanted to drive out there. Even to this day, I'm going to see Giants training camp on Friday morning. I don't want to drive out there because it's a pain in the ass to drive around the Meadowlands.
Yeah, I mean the Meadowlands. It was never issue getting there either. I like the Meadowlands.
Yeah, I like my wife was there for Beyonce last night, and their Uber pickup mechanism was a little weird, and she was waiting outside for an hour. But besides that, it was all good. It's just a weird place. they built it up. They have a train station now, but I don't think it was the teams always sucked. I think it was just like, oh God, I gotta go on Route 3 and drive around Meadowlands and get rerouted and park near the racetrack and then walk across that big tube over the highway to get to the like. It's just a shitty spot. I still like going there to this day. Still makes my stomach hurt. Like, ugh. Anyway, back to what we're talking about.
We love American Dream, though. We love American Dream.
I'm not going there. It's $25 on parking. Blow me. All right. You go first. Give me your list. And this would be no particular order. I got 6 on them, and you go first.
All right. I got all right. I'm going Clyde Drexler. I feel like, I hate the narrative that, Dame is the greatest Blazer of all time, and then Clyde gets kind of swept under the rug, that people forget he was on a dream team. He led Portland in scoring. He got them to 2 NBA finals. Yeah, they didn't win, but that's neither here nor there. I got Bernard King. I feel like he gets lost in the sauce when it comes to New York basketball, especially playing before Ewing, and then after Ewing there was a big gap, and people just somehow people think of Frazier, Ewing, Carmelo, and everybody else. They don't really think about that era. I also I have James Worthy. I feel like he gets no credit for what happened in Showtime. Considering he played with Magic, he played with Kareem, he played with a lot of other legends. But even in North Carolina, he was a great collegiate athlete. People forget about that. Jordan wouldn't have got his if he didn't have big game Worthy back then. Mm-hmm. Who else I got on mine? I got, this might be a good one for you. I'm gonna go with Sean Elliott.
Ooh.
I feel like he was an anchor during the early Spurs. I feel like he was the guy. He was Adonis Haslam to the Spurs.
Damn.
I feel like he's the one who toughened up Robinson, kind of, put Duncan under his wing before he descended off and then sunset. But I feel like he was definitely a glue guy that definitely contributed a lot to the Spurs winning culture that just somehow just completely gets unraveled. And my list isn't that long. I feel like this one, speaking of the Nets, speaking of the Meadowlands, Drazen Petrovic. I feel like if he didn't come into the league, we wouldn't have got that influx of European players. People think about Kukoc. If it wasn't for Drazen, there would have been no Kukoc. If it wasn't for Kukoc, there would have been no Dirk. And I feel like Drazen really set that wave, and his untimely death, he had a full career ahead of him. I thought he would have been, sensational player for the Nets. He was when he was there, but I feel like his transitioning to the NBA definitely opened the floodgates for foreign players to come in and really, have someone to look up to, and now look at them dominating the game. So those are my core right there.
Well, Petrovic's interesting too, because I know NBA TV had that documentary about the Trailblazers when they had that run, and people forget because they remember the net time, because the Nets was him, Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman, Chris Morris, and I think Chuck Daly was their coach. Chuck Daly just left the Pistons and went to the Nets, and he was with Portland first, number 44, and he was killing it with Portland. I think Portland, one of the things were like, hey, we got a lot of bodies, we got to move you. And I think that's kind of what happened with him in Portland. With the Jersey, he killed it. Bruce makes a good point in the chat. Incomplete, not underrated. Incomplete. Which well I can say that too, because I feel like if he didn't pass away, I feel like that team would have gotten better, because Drazen, Kenny, and Derek Coleman had good chemistry. Yeah. Drazen was a shooter. Kenny was the driver, good passes, and Coleman was the big dude in the middle who was just dunking everybody. Mm-hmm. Worthy's forgotten about, and I think you're right about Worthy. I feel like everyone forgets James Worthy. Like, Worthy was good. Mm-hmm. Everybody forgot about James Worthy. So my list, we actually match up on Bernard King and Clyde Drexler. I got both of those guys. Okay. I think King, because he got hurt so much, I think what he was and he averaged 32 points to lead the league. He was a scorer. He could score 50 when he wanted to. Because he got hurt, and he got hurt right before Ewing got there. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't the same player after that. So I feel like if Ewing was there, you had a healthy Bernard King, with a Mark Jackson later. Imagine that.
Would have made some noise in the late 80s, early
right?
90s.
Drexler, your thinking was the same thinking I had. Dame Lillard's the best Blazer, and I can't remember who said it. It was one of the podcast. It was a podcast. It was a Bill Simmons podcast with Klosterman a couple weeks ago, and how they said Dame might be the best Blazer in history, and I'm like, wait, huh? So I went back and looked, and I'm like, no, Drexler still is the best trailblazer in NBA. I'm sorry, he's the best one. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists a game. He averaged 19, 6, and 6 in Houston after he left Portland.
He's the reason they didn't draft Jordan. They didn't need Jordan at that time.
Yeah. So I don't agree with that. I think Drexler's still good. One of my guys, I'm going to go with a Spur. And I know Bruce is going to lose his shit. I'm waiting for Bruce to go, what the fuck? Tim Duncan. Because I feel like he wasn't flashy. Like big fundamentals. That's what Shaq called him. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't like this he just played ball, grabbed rebounds, had a good low post game, didn't do too much, didn't do too little. He did his job, right? That's what he did. Tim Duncan just did his job, and he was just like there. So yeah, he was part of that Spurs dynasty, but I feel like no one really talks about Tim Duncan a lot. Everyone talks about Shaq or Ewing or now we're talking about Jokic. And Jokic seems to like bump Tim Duncan out of the way a little bit now. It's like, so I feel like Duncan might be underrated. My other guy, and these two guys are kind of linked.
Okay.
Mark Aguirre and Adrian Dantley.
Aguirre, okay.
Because Dantley was with the Pistons. Dantley was with the Pistons, but before that, he was with the Nuggets. Drop buckets. Dantley went to the Pistons, didn't get along with Isaiah Thomas, got traded to Dallas for Aguirre. Aguirre, who can score 30 points a game. He led the league in scoring 1 year. Went to the Pistons, took a decreased role, like we talked about, John Cole Jones and Chris Bosh. He went to the Pistons knowing, okay, I can't score 30 a night. Okay, cool. But Aguirre and Dantley back in the 80s were guys that can light up the scoreboard. Bruce said he's not a winner. True. I'm not talking about championships. I'm not talking about whether they won championships. I'm talking about guys that were undervalued back then who are still undervalued now. I think that's the conversation of like winner that's subjective. Last guy on my list, Dominique Wilkins.
Okay.
I feel like people talk about Dominique Duncan, but no one talks about Dominique. 25 a game, 7 rebounds, averaged over 30 in 85, 86 season. I feel like Dominique is only mentioned as a dunker, not as a complete basketball player. People only talk about him and Jordan in the dunk contest in Chicago Stadium.
I feel like Gerald Wilkins will disagree with this, but I feel like you're right about Dominique in terms of like people didn't realize he was such a prolific scorer, but I think him being on NBA TV does help his case a lot. People they're gonna go down that YouTube wormhole, or they're gonna be like, why do you keep calling him the human highlight film? Then they're gonna see that Game 7 against Boston where it was him versus Bird, and Bird. They were going shot for shot.
Yeah, I think Dominique only is looked at as dunking, and as only how you see the NBA 80 show, Dom Duncan, not hitting threes, not taking guys with the dribble, just him dunking. I feel like he's an undervalued player. A couple guys mentioned
statue in Atlanta, by the way. I'm surprised that they should definitely build a statue in front of a State Farm for him.
Yeah, I mean he still does the games. I forgot he does the games. He does the color analysis for him, so he's still around. Joe Dumars, Rick Barry, Sidney Moncrief, Elgin Baylor's not under. I think Elgin Baylor's mentioned often. Moncrief possibly. Rick Barry.
He's a Barry. Barry's not underrated. They're like the Von. They're like the what's the Von Erichs?
The Von Erichs. The Von Erichs of basketball.
We can't escape them. They're everywhere. It's funny that neither one of us had anybody from the modern era on this list, from like from like that 96 to 2010 era.
Zydrunas Ilgauskas, underrated. Z-Man. Let's go. There's no, because I feel like everyone forgets that the NBA existed in the 80s. It's almost like the 90s when people started giving a shit about the NBA. Everything that happened in the 80s, no one gave a shit about because the NBA was not as big as it was. It got big in the 90s when the Bulls started winning championships and people started really giving a shit. The NBA was Magic and Bird in the 80s. And he had sprinkles of different guys here and there, here and there, here and there. But the 80s was like this really weird like transition to like, all right, we're gonna make the NBA a big league and not show the NBA finals on tape delay 3 hours after the fact. So I feel like the 80s is weird.
Not only that was weird, but I was just thinking in my head, damn, the NBA got better from the 80s on, and then when it was Bird and Magic, and on the NCAA side, it was Ewing and Jordan, and then we slowly got and Worthy and those guys. Mm-hmm. Then we got the UNLVs and the Dukes, and programs started establishing themselves. Michigan, so it definitely picked up. I would definitely say 80s, 90s definitely picked up.
Yeah, especially like late 80s into the early 90s. I think that's when you start like, oh, okay, yeah, at Fab Five. All right, cool. They want to go into the NBA. Like, who are they going to go with? Right. Larry Johnson. I thought Larry Johnson was UNLV for like a year. He was there for 3 years.
For 3 years.
I forgot. Like a lot of guys stayed in college for longer.
Leitner too. Leitner stayed 3 years.
Leitner stayed 4.
He stayed 4. You're right.
He stayed for all 4. But I think I love college basketball. I think watching college basketball growing up, you got to know the players a lot more. So when they got into the league, like, okay, where Larry Johnson's Charlotte. Okay, I gotta watch Charlotte. Cool. But you don't really have that anymore. So it's like you don't really get this vested interest in a lot of these players anymore. Like you and I had when we were growing up. You saw them in college, like, they got drafted by Vancouver. Damn, big country's done. Like you start thinking that. So it's interesting. Joe Dumars was mentioned by Bruce. What do you put Joe Dumars in this conversation?
I feel like I think he gets his props because you know what? It's a Detroit thing. When Detroit wins championships, it's by committee, and it's like, yes, Isaiah was the star, but everybody knows Joe Dumars was kind of like the head that ran everything. He was the cerebral assassin. Kind of reminds me of Triple H in terms of like even because when he went to management, he was able to still bring home a championship. Pretty much relicking what he did before and assembling that roster properly, just to to throw in the Lakers in was it 04, 05? Yeah.
Well, Bruce mentioned in chat, Aguirre's not a winner. Aguirre won championships with the Pistons, but like you said, it was an ensemble. Like Isaiah was the head, Isaiah was the top. You had Dumars, you had whatever the hell Bill Laimbeer brought.
Rodman wasn't even at his peak in Detroit.
No, Rodman wasn't at his peak. Rick Mahorn just clotheslining dudes. Yep. John Sally was just hitting guys.
Yeah.
James Edwards, who was like 32, like about 56. He got minutes. Like Aguirre was a winner. I also feel like Aguirre on those Dallas teams, they were garbage. Like you look at Aguirre and that roster on Dallas. Look at Adrian Dantley in Denver before you got to the Pistons. They played on some shitty rosters. And Dallas was like, Roy Tarpley, Mark Aguirre, championship. And then Tarpley's on coke every game. So it's like, well, that shot themselves in the foot because Tarpley can get off coke. So it's like, what the hell? So I don't blame them for that being winners, essentially, because whoever owned those teams in Denver and Dallas did not do them any favors. They knew they had legit scorers who were box office, but they weren't surrounding them with any good players, or they were all defective or had drug problems somehow. So,
the 80s.
Yeah, listen, I watch the NBA 80s sometimes on NBA TV if I'm bored, and I'm just like, that was a good decade, but like you said, no one gave a shit about the NBA in the 80s. Like,
the money wasn't there.
It wasn't until, like I said, it wasn't until the Bulls got good and they can push Jordan down everyone's throats. And then they were like, okay, the Bulls are the central piece, and we're going to surround them. And then you got the Utahs with Stockton and Malone. You had the Knicks with Ewing. And the Trailblazers had their kind of a couple-year run. The Pistons had their couple-year. Everyone had a run. But the Bulls was like the ultimate, like that was the league's team. And David Stern made Jordan retire for gambling debt. I'm not going to go there because that's a conspiracy theory. Our last topic tonight, I want to talk about this too because we talk about NILs a lot in college sports. The Senate actually introduced an NIL bill, mainly about foreign players being able to do NILs. And then they had a couple other bills led by Tommy Tuberville, who used to be coach football at Auburn, pretty much putting caps on how much money kids can get. And Tuberville's against it because he's a coach, and coaches don't believe in paying players because they believe in, indentured servitude in college sports. My question to you, and I was under the impression that I don't want the U.S. government anywhere near NILs right now. I think all this is going to do is kind of fuck it up and just make things worse.
I agree.
But is it necessary? Because it does feel like the main NIL booster in Miami just got brought up on SEC charges yesterday. So now some of his money's dirty. But that money's dirty with the players, and Isaiah Wong from Miami basketball got like $500,000 NIL deal from this guy who's under indictment. Is it necessary for someone besides the NCAA and someone bigger to kind of come into the fold and go, let's hold on, let's figure this shit out?
I think so, only because everyone knows the NCAA is a bunch of pimps, and I feel like somebody's got to come in and make sure everything is on the up and up. I'm thinking of, what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about the next. Didn't they say they're going to bring back NCAA football next year?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see how that plays out in terms of like, well, is everyone going to get a check? Is every player that's in that game will be able to get a check, or some sort of NIL deal with EA? Things like this.
Well, the plan was every player in the game was going to get $500.
That's it.
That's it. I think that's enough. Like, there's an organization.
If I'm a Heisman candidate.
But if you're a Heisman candidate, you're a Heisman candidate, you're already getting a crazy NIL deal. So why do you care if you get $500 when you're already getting $2 million to eat Bojangles in North Carolina? Like, who cares?
Yeah, but what I wouldn't want the third string quarterback, the walk on, only getting $500. I think that's got to up that a little bit. But
that's the guy who needs the $500 though. I would think like the second string, the second string offensive guard who ain't getting an NIL deal, he would appreciate the $500. You're in a video game. Like you're in a video game. People can play as you or whatever. I think the bigger athletes are going to get the NIL deals no matter what. So the $500 is neither here nor there. That $500 is probably they'll put that in their pocket, put that in their car, and give it to one of the girls on campus. Who cares?
It's definitely one of somebody's OnlyFans.
Yeah, I think. I've had such bad luck on OnlyFans. Sidebar. No PPVs. I'm looking for a couple. No PPVs. Let's. No, if I pay you, I don't want to pay extra. Like, we're good. We're good. Anyway, my wife listens like, what the fuck? No, it's just I feel like the game's coming back. They want to gauge. I think the $500 is a beginning. I think once the game comes back, they'll figure out because they realize that college football was never a big game for them in the first place. It wasn't a big seller.
I'm surprised it was. I feel you know what? It came out before the dominance of the SEC.
Yeah. Because only guys like you and me would get NCAA football to import the rosters of the Madden. Like, yeah. Yep. Only nerds like us did that shit. No one else did that. So it wasn't a really big seller, but they had their base. They had their niche audience. I think they want to see, because college football is so big.
It's so big now.
If it sells well, we could up the 500 to something bigger, or get a bigger NIL deal and partner with a sponsor or something like that. They're not looking at it like, we're gonna screw these kids over, because they're the first ones to pay the kids in the lawsuit with the NCAA, EA, and the marketing group. EA was like, we got it. We're gonna pay $40 million. We'll send you all checks. They were the first ones to do it, so they know what they're doing. They want to pay, but they got to see if this is worth the money first, to see if it's worth the effort, because it may not be for them. They may go back to selling 75,000 copies of this game like they did last time.
We'll see. I think it's going to be a big hit, especially with the landscape a little different. But I definitely think the government being involved it's somebody else to watch over it because no one trusts the NCAA. I feel like they'll definitely make their cut at the top.
No, and now, I mean, I'm over the conference. I was just watching all the media days for college football, and like now Colorado's going to the Big 12, and then Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC, and the Big 12 hates them officially now. And then you got UCLA and USC moving to the Big 10, which geographically still makes no fucking sense. Still don't understand how that's going to work. For like, you know, a noon start of Ohio State UCLA game in California at 9 a.m. So the point. It's just a lot in college sports. I don't need anything else changing or putting their fingers in it because it's already kind of a cluster to begin with now.
Right. Pretty much, yeah.
Bruce, talk about Doc Rivers and Doris Burke calling games next season because Mark Jackson is no longer an analyst. So ABC, ESPN loses Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy. Doc Rivers, Doris Burke reportedly in the driver's seat. What are your thoughts?
Sounds like it's going to be a lot of Stephen A. World for me to watch this game.
Oh, God, no.
Or I feel like I'm not sure exactly what the plan is over at ESPN. I think Doris could do a good job. I don't want to hear Doc Rivers. I don't want to hear Doc Rivers. I don't want to hear the fired coach coming in here playing, you know, doing the play-by-play. Poor Green. Oh, I do hope.
Back when I coached Joel, you know, I told Joel go inside.
I hope one of them do end up going to MSG Network, though. That's what I want to see. Bring the band back together at MSG.
See, is Van Gundy cool with Dolan? Is that because I don't know from day to day. Yeah, I don't know from day to day where Dolan stands with people anymore because Dolan's burnt some bridges with Nick people. So I don't know if Van Gundy's still cool with Dolan and the people at the Knicks. I mean, Dolan, because Dolan screws everything up. I can see Dolan. I can see Van Gundy going, no, but see a 3-man booth with Breen, Clyde, and Van Gundy. That seems very crowded.
It could work. That's a lot of Nick stories in there. That's a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s recovered. That's a lot of stories in there.
Well, Ben says Van Gundy should go to TNT. I think they're gonna do like a Van Gundy brothers thing. They gotta put them together at some point, whether it be like full time or just like sporadically. I definitely think Jeff Van Gundy's gonna be on TNT with Stan at some point this year. It's definitely gonna happen. That's money if you put the Van Gundy brothers together with Kevin Harlan, who's the best basketball announcer right now to me because I love Kevin Harlan.
I feel like when is the media rights contract up? Next year?
Next year.
Those guys will not be employed for long. Somebody's gonna. There's gonna be a new contender, maybe Amazon or something. Somebody's gonna emerge and grab these guys up.
I mean, listen, as they said, NBC is going to make a run again. So they said NBC is very interested in getting NBA back. So that's interesting if the NBA goes back to NBC and those guys, like I said, they won't be unemployed. They might take 1-year deals and go like, we'll go to TNT, whatever, and go, okay, we'll wait for NBC or whoever gets the rights. I still think it's going to be ESPN, TNT. I don't think anyone else is going to pay for what the NBA is going to be asking for besides.
But I heard from what I'm hearing, ESPN wants more. They want All-Star Saturday. They want all that stuff over there.
Yeah, but that belongs to TNT. Sorry. Plus the NBA, like, we don't want your post-game, pre-game sport. We don't want Stephen A. anywhere near NBA All-Star Weekend more than he has to be there.
Hey, listen, sometimes I cringe when Stephen A. is doing UFC or boxing. It's a little too much.
Yet they fired Max Kellerman. ESPN has boxing. They have legitimate boxing. And you fire the one boxing expert you have. You put him on other bullshit shows to talk about dumb stuff. And the one guy whose boxing is like an encyclopedia of knowledge, you fire him. But let Stephen A. come on and talk with who's the other analyst?
You're starting to sound like Dan Levitar right now.
But listen, Stu Gatz, my guy, that back row, my people, he made a point. Like you literally cashed everyone out. But in the meantime, you have Stephen A. like, well, that's the business, but you're making like $11 million a year. So yeah, that's the business. That's you. You're the business. They're paying you an exorbitant amount of money to do everything. Even if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're just a face right now. And like, yeah, that's as ratings. And now they're like, well, he's like, I would love Shannon Sharp to come over. Oh my God, no. If I see Shannon Sharp,
it's a downgrade for Shannon Sharp to go over there because he'll only be there maybe like one day, like Mad Dog is.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin said ESPN's quality is so bad for sports coverage. The NHL was so bad this year in the basketball. I think the NHL is all right. I think they're still getting their feet wet again. I think they're still trying to figure out like who they are and what they are and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA, the game coverage isn't terrible. It's their pregame shows and NBA Today.
And it's always
That's the problem.
Like, yeah.
That's the issue because their pregame show, like Greeny, should be nowhere near that show, but he's hosting it. Like you got it right with Wilbon, you had it right with Jalen Rose. She fired him. Stephen A. He's going to be there no matter what. But Greenberg should not be hosting the show. Like I don't understand why. I don't know. I don't know. This is where I'm losing my mind right here. As always, great show, bro.
Likewise.
By the way, NXT was fucking atrocious last night. I gave them an hour. It was bad. They said the main event was good, but I couldn't make it.
The main event was good. The main event was really good.
Listen,
but boy, that Stevens premiere. Whew.
That crowd turned on him fast.
You're in that angle. Jesus.
That and then the women's title match. I was like, she can't put a Boston Crab on correctly. I'm confused what's happening. Right? Is this part of the sell? Is she selling something? I don't really know.
Listen, it's developmental now. It ain't the glory days of NXT. Them glory days is called AEW.
Yeah, it was atrocious. I gave him an hour. I told you, I gave him an hour. I'm going to finish watching Succession. I did last night, and well worth 2 a.m. going up to bed. My wife's like,
there you go.
My wife just got back from Beyonce. She's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Succession was so good. It ended the exact way it should have ended. It ended exactly the way it should have ended.
It really did.
Because it couldn't have ended with them getting the company. It had to end with some crazy shit. And like Shiv, who is listen, I will say this: Shiv Roy, first team all white girl. She's on my list. She's at the top of the list for me. Shiv Roy is up there, but like it was like Billions better bring it. Billions better end crazy.
I think they will. We get X back. It will.
Yeah,
it will.
But Succession was crazy. Jason's always great show, bro.
Likewise.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm going away next weekend, so I'll be back next week, the week after.
Nice. Enjoy your time away.
Saratoga, gamble on some horses probably, and lose my mortgage. It'd be great.
Okay. Pick
one
Liberty
podcast
in the under. Liberty in the under.
I will definitely do that. Sabrina SQ over 3 threes. Winner overtime. Easy money. One Podcast Network, Saturday Night Live, Live Free and Laugh Hard. That is now up. Me and Tom talked about SNL, the history, why Mad TV was better, and why isn't the show funny anymore. So that's what's on the network right now. Moody Irish Guy, also with Tom, talking about his experiences being in America for his last 2 years. That's back. And we have a Sebastian Maniscalco episode coming up next week where he was very tame, but still hates the man. So that's coming up too. A lot of big things. Tri-State Heat still coming back, probably in the fall, if that's okay with you, Jay.
Yep. Let's do it.
And we'll do it probably in the fall. We'll figure that out. But One Podcast Network on YouTube here, One Podcast Network on Spotify there. Hit us up. We need to make some money in this shit. I'm gonna get some. I want to pay my mortgage. I want to pay my mortgage with just doing this for a living. It'd be great. So for Jason Cord, I'm Kahlil Thomas. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, we will see you in 2 weeks here on the One Podcast Network. Peace.
Peace.